Our first speaker is a native of Romford, Essex, England. Was educated at the University of London, served honorably in the 165th New York Infantry, retired as Vice President of the Co-Ring Company, and as a retiree has served in many volunteer capacities with the Leon County Sheriff's Office, Springtime Tallahassee, and as a broadcaster with WFSU and WFSQ. I'd like you to please welcome Mr. Geoffrey Styles. Geoffrey?
Well, good afternoon. You'll probably guess that when I start speaking, I'm a typical American. I came from somewhere else. In fact, I guess I'm a typical Floridian, too. Most of us are from somewhere else, right? I was born in 1929. I'm 80 years old, and I'm not running for any office, so you can relax. Vote for the people who are, and I hope they're the right people. I lived in London during the war, and in 1942, Americans started arriving in my hometown because the 8th and 9th Air Forces came to give us a hand to kick the backsides of the Germans. I apologize to any Germans here. But anyhow, that's the way it was, and I met several of them because my father was a World War I veteran and was gassed in the trenches in France in 1916. I liked the Americans that came. They treated me like a kid brother. I grew up in an era where children should be seen and not heard. You're probably all too young to remember that era. But the Yanks were really nice. They treated me like a younger member of the family. And after I'd finished school, I decided I'd like to see what the United States was like. And I've never been sorry. I was greeted by Uncle Sam sooner after I got off the boat, and I spent 3 years in uniform, proudly, as Preston mentioned. And the other day we were chatting, and he said, why don't you come and say a few words to these people? They've probably never met a transported Englishman before. But anyhow, I've been a naturalized citizen for many, many years, and this is my home, and Tallahassee is now my home after many years in Virginia and Wisconsin, or New York too. Anyhow, thinking back to the 18th century, there were a couple of Georges involved. One was George III and one was George Washington. And I sure as hell know which one I'd have been working for because I don't like big government. And God knows we've got big government today. And I don't like necessarily being told what to do from a long distance away. Originally it was London, England, but now it's Washington, D.C. And they're running our lives, and I think in many ways they're ruining our lives. We need to have a little more control. As I said to Preston earlier today, democracy only works when people take part, and it's wonderful to see you people out here, because I hope your heads are where your hearts are, and I hope very much that we can bring about some changes in this country before it goes too far. I have 6 grandchildren in Wisconsin.
That's the big screen.
They're going to be paying until they're my age, if they're lucky. If they're not lucky, they'll be their children and their grandchildren will be paying this huge national debt that we have, which is really out of control. You can't run your household that way. You'd have to declare bankruptcy. But the country can run that way because they just keep on printing money. But what really ticks me off is when we have situations like this health bill, and the congressman from Nebraska was bribed with a large amount of money just to vote yes. And when they start using my money to bribe a congressman so they get the vote out of him that they want, I think that's going too far. If these people in Washington can't think of anything else but getting reelected, then I think we're in bad trouble. They should be there serving the people, but I don't believe they really are. I think they like their perks, their pensions, their free haircuts, and their meals that they get. I used to live in D.C. for about 20 years, and you see a lot of them. And they have very high privileges. Anyhow, I didn't come here to bore you today. I'm just going to ask you to be good Americans and take part in this forthcoming election. We know it's a midterm election. I haven't missed voting since I became a citizen, and I won't, because I think it's very important who we send, whether it's an office here in Tallahassee or whether it's in Washington, D.C. But do your duty, do remember the sacrifices that people who came before us have done. And I can't go to France without visiting the American cemetery, and that's something all our young people should do, to remember who went before them, what sacrifices they made, and how much we owe those people who never made it back home. So do your job as an American, get out there and vote, support the candidate you believe in, and let's get some of these worthless ones out of office. Thank you for listening to me.